And I'll probably say this again at the regular meeting, but thank you to the Rock Island County for the use of this room for the next 4 or 5 months. Appreciate the assistance and working together. So I'd like to call the study session to order and start with a roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Present.
Hurt.
Here.
Maynard.
Present.
Swanson. Here. Parker. Poulos.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
And Mayor Tomes.
Here. Thank you very much. Public comment. Nobody signed up for public comment. So then we will move on to the presentations. We have the ERP, the software presentation. Tim, you starting that off? He's in there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you everyone for giving us an opportunity to talk about the new software tonight. Nina, if you could put the presentation up, please, that would be very helpful. I'd like to just take a minute to introduce the team, basically, for the ERP project. There we go. So obviously, City Manager Todd Thompson's been involved with the software team. Samantha Ganji, she's been involved as well, City Clerk. Mike Bartels, Rob Bogus, Jessica Sager, Miles Brainerd, and myself. And then early on in the process, we asked and obtained Plant Moran for some assistance. So tonight we'll be hearing from Nina Rejovic and Adam Ben Mochi and Natalie Schwartz. They are here from Plant Moran. And so without further ado, I'll probably kick it off and hand it over to them. Nina's probably going to take you through the presentation. The objective of this presentation is really just to kind of give the council some background as to where we've been, what we've done for the last almost 2 years now, and where we think we are in preparation for later this evening. So with that, Nina.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We just have a couple slides to share with you to give you an update of the project, how we got to where we are today, and what will be happening going forward. And so a little bit on the project background. Some of you may have seen this a few months ago when we gave a presentation, but just wanted to reiterate why we did this project. The city had identified that there were some process efficiencies with the current system and some of the limitations that existed there, which caused shadow systems and workarounds and using spreadsheets and other tools outside of the main ERP. And that really staff wanted that desire and have that greater access to information and have better efficiencies from their processes. And so due to all of these reasons, the city embarked on this system selection for a new ERP with the objectives to get a more user-friendly system and reduce some of that manual work and redundancy associated with the various systems being used. And so with that, and with this new project, we're hoping to incorporate best practices into the key business processes and provide both residents and staff to key information and to be able to access that from the system. And so that's where we are today with the main goal of this project is to procure an integrated solution, which you'll be hearing a little bit about where we landed with that in a few slides. So in terms of the project timeline and what we've done to get to this decision, we conducted interviews with staff across the city and across departments back in April to identify some of the gaps with the current environment and what everyone wanted and needed in the future. And so as an outcome of that, we created an assessment report that we shared our observations and recommendations with the city. And from that, we developed and distributed an RFP for a new ERP system. Then in the fall, we received vendor responses. We analyzed those responses. We brought the top vendors in for vendor demonstrations, which ultimately resulted in that final vendor selection, who we are wrapping up contract negotiations with right now. Just to reiterate, the project scope was key financial areas, human resource process areas, community and economic development, and utility billing. So that was the main scope that we were looking at as we embarked on this system selection. And some of the themes that we heard from staff throughout this entire project was that they were really forthcoming and resourceful and forward thinking and open to new ideas and excited for what's to come, and hoping to eliminate and reduce some of these paper-based processes and workarounds that currently existed. And so these are just important things to keep in mind as we get into the next steps with implementation, to continue leveraging staff and their excitement and their institutional knowledge with this new system. So a couple of key outcomes from this entire project. You've already heard me mention a few of them with some of the software restrictions and redundant efforts that's causing to date. But with this new system, again, hoping to incorporate some of those best practices and reevaluate some of the processes to really streamline the business processes and the implementation. And so those were some of the findings and things that we identified through this entire project so far, which got us to our recommendations and outcomes from that assessment. And so through this engagement, we identified these 3 options for the path forward for the city. And so one of those was to keep with the status quo, remain on the current system, which is not viable long-term. As you've heard, there's already some challenges that staff have been experiencing and workarounds. And so we had suggested that the city look for a new ERP or a new best of breed solution. Both of those would be great options for the city. And so based on that, the city had released that RFP back in August, considering options for both of these. And so whether that was one single system of record with integrated modules and having kind of everything in one place versus a best of breed integrated solution, those were the 2 options that we were open to when we released the RFP. And so based on that, the city received 10 responses to the RFP for both of those options. And you can see here the different vendors that we heard back from and the scopes that they met. And so we'll share a little bit with you of which vendors moved kind of into the next rounds and into this final selection here today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Natalie to share a little bit more detail about the selection itself, and then Tim to give the recommendation.
Thanks, Nina. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us here this evening. It's been wonderful to work with the city and support Nina throughout the project. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the selection process that Nina already mentioned. In essence, our selection process is very much in line with a public sector procurement process where we elicit feedback from an RFP procurement process. We ensure that we have an evaluation criteria that's set forth that really understands what the goals are of the organization. And that really was, as Nina mentioned, to cut down on redundant processes, be able to utilize technology to its fullest potential, and really include some of those modern functionality pieces into your new process. After the proposals were received, we went through a shortlist discussion and ensured that we looked at that criteria and kind of narrowed down from the many vendors that responded to identify the top vendors that we wanted to bring in and do additional due diligence. So there was a very thorough process to go through the shortlist exercise, as well as bring in the selected shortlist vendors for demonstrations, follow-up information, reference checks, and other due diligence that allowed the team to really get to the best fit solution and vendor for them. So here is the evaluation process. As I mentioned, there was 3 rounds for evaluation. So the first round was really, did the vendors meet the minimum criteria? Have they done this before? Do they have a minimum client software installation, at least 5 that are similar to the city with a similar scope? And did they complete the proposal and submit on time? all of those vendors moved on to round two, where we shortlisted, and you can see here the evaluation criteria broken up by the weighted functionality was 20% in round two. So that was the most important. One of the most important things to the city was finding a solution that best meet their needs from a functionality perspective. Service and support was also important at 12%. Investment in cost was very important at 40%. The technical components and requirements and how the vendors could meet their technical requirements was 20%. And then vendor viability from a perspective of what they were doing in the marketplace and how sustainable they have been in the past and will be in the future. You can then see for round three, after we went through the short list and we saw demos and reference checks and additional information through the due diligence process, the evaluation committee went through a final selection based on this criteria. And it's the same criteria, it's just weighted differently for the final vendor selection. So you can see that there were a lot of vendor proposals received, that it really accounted for the approach that we went through with the RFP in terms of looking at the market for not only core ERP, but also best of breed solutions for some of the other best of breed niche areas. And we got a really good vendor feedback through this process. And at the end of the day, there were 2 vendors that were shortlisted that went through the more due diligence process. And I will let Tim talk about our selected vendor.
Thank you, Natalie. I was remiss in not introducing Gary a little earlier this evening, but tonight with us, we also have Gary Doobie. He's here to represent Tyler Technologies.
Hi, good
Primary
evening.
reason that we have Gary here, of course, is if there's questions that this group can't answer, whether it's a team member or perhaps the consulting team, then we have the vendor here to address questions. But in the end, what we think is probably the best choice or the best option for the city of Rock Island is to work with Tyler Technologies. So, Gary, if you have any remarks you want to make, great. I apologize I cut you off. You started to.
No, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to the city, and it was a very thorough process put in place by Plant Moran and the city. Did a strong evaluation, and so we feel fortunate to have the opportunity to partner with the city.
So, having said that, Nina, can you hit that next slide for me, please? I think is it. So one of the things we tried to do was kind of take a look at the cost. And I believe these charts were included in the packet as well as the recommendation. But one of the initial comments that Nina made was we considered the possibility of status quo. And so when you look at the red lines, those red pieces of the chart, this is what the city would spend over the next 5 years if we had the option to do nothing, basically status quo. And even at that, we're still at $1.5 million that the city would spend over the next 5 years on ERP software. And so when you take a look at where we are in comparison to what's new, there really isn't a humongous difference between the two. Yes, it's $1.8 million, but really that's only $300,000 over what we would spend anyway. So the gap isn't that different. On the next slide, what I tried to do was take a stab at how the city might go about paying for some of this software. In the initial phases, we were hopeful to utilize ARPA funding. And so you'll see these first 3 years tap into that source of funding known as ARPA, with the final 2 years being probably solely reliant on the general fund. And short of the staffing additions that we talked about in the next slide, it will actually be less on years 4 and 5 than what we're paying currently. Total cost of ownership is a slide I'd like to talk about just a little bit. One of the things that I kind of do need to make sure that is clear to the council is there's more than just what we need to do with Tyler. And yes, with Tyler is a significant investment. We're talking about 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 million dollars. But overall, there are more things to do, right? We've got staffing concerns that we're going to have to wade through. We've got GIS that we're going to have to wade through. And so there are a number of other little things that add into this entire total cost of ownership picture. And that's kind of what this chart is about, is showing the difference between here's what it really would cost, from a total city perspective. The last slide is really just a direct comparison of what the total expense is, and you'll see that in the charts that were in the recommendation, versus what the outlay to Tyler will be. And so I just kind of wanted to make sure that the council got a peek at the total cost of ownership with regards to our system, because there are other things besides this. Yes, this is all with Tyler, but no, there might be some other costs along the way that I just mentioned. Nina, do you want to go from there?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim.
All right, so we're going to talk about next steps. So we're in the process, obviously, of finalizing the contract with Tyler Technologies. We went through with Tyler, worked with them on reviewing and really absorbing the information in the statement of work to the point where both parties are very comfortable. And we're excited to get started now with the implementation, where the real fun begins, we like to say, because although there's been so much hard work from the city and from others throughout the process to select the system, the implementation is when the real fun begins. It's a long process. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of information, right, to get you through that implementation. And there's going to be kind of bumps in the road through that process. But at the end, you will have gotten through it together, learned a lot, and really been able to achieve the goals that you really set forth in the beginning of the project, which was to be in a better spot, to allow employees to do their jobs in a better, efficient way, and also use modern technology that will assist with that process. It's really important at this time, and I know we've been having some discussions on this already, to identify the level of support that you're going to be needed for implementation, both internally and externally. In terms of folks' level of effort that they're going to need to spend on the implementation, this is going to obviously be a big lift on top of folks' day-to-days. You're also trying to keep a city running and operating, and so pulling people away from their day-to-day for implementation is a hard, complex task to do. Many times we like to tell our clients to pull people into a room for a day or two and see how it goes. How can the city run without that? And do you need to backfill? Do you need to kind of adjust roles and responsibilities to ensure that you do have the right resources dedicated to implementation, but you can also keep the city going and payroll going out? You're going to have to commit those quality resources to the project team. Now, there's a lot of resources that you can outsource, that you can get to help with a lot of the project activities. But at the end of the day, you're going to need your folks involved, engaged, bought into the project, trained up and familiar with the decisions that were made, because when all of us consultants leave, you all are going to have to take that knowledge, the new process, and the new system moving forward. And with that, with any digital transformation project, prioritizing change management is key. And really ensuring that you're infusing change management, you're planning for it, you're addressing it throughout the implementation is crucial. We work with a lot of clients that really prioritize this and others that don't at very similar types of projects, and it takes much longer for the system to be and the process to be stabilized, and for folks to adopt the system if change management is not a big component. So those are the key next steps that we recommend moving forward. We've talked a little bit about some of these, but really the major success factors that we want to ensure that we talk about today to kind of set the record straight for the implementation is to minimize modifications. And we talked a lot about this with Tyler. Tyler agrees Gary, you can keep me honest, that there is this standard future state process and future state configuration that you should be able to utilize out of the Munis solution. And so there really shouldn't be a need for modifications. If you do hear from the Tyler folks that this would be a modification, red flags should go up. There should be a governance structure in place where you have the executive folks sitting in a room and making decisions about whether that is really appropriate or needed. And we say that because modifications, especially in these cloud systems, are really not best practice. They can cause a lot of issues when you upgrade, and they cause more headache than you need. So we really encourage you all to look at where you can make changes to your processes to be able to leverage the system out of the box. You obviously want to get executive buy-in and build consensus around the ERP. This goes back to change management and getting that buy-in from top down. And so we really want to ensure that we set up a governance structure and communicate, and update people on the project. What are those quick wins? What are the benefits that are they'll be able to realize, and ensure that that's infused throughout the project. You want to set realistic expectations for the implementation. So although Munis is wonderful, it's not going to cure every pain point that we identified in the needs assessment. A lot of them will be policy changes or process changes or people changes, roles and responsibility changes. And so you want to set realistic expectations that it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to want to, implement the system out of the box and make some changes, but you'll want to walk before you run, right? You'll want to get live and really, get used to the new system and then start building more enhancements, and also set expectations that, again, it's not going to do everything for you. There's still going to be some things that need human intervention, and even some reporting that you may need to do outside of what spits out of the system. We talked about staff resources. Can't stress this enough that all of our public sector clients that we work with struggle with this, oftentimes, unfortunately, resulting in delays and more money when you have to push go live back. But you do want to really look at the resources that you have internally and plan accordingly for their availability and time and bandwidth, and then kind of backfill the rest of those resources where you can. Establishing a strong project management is going to be crucial for the success of the project. There's going to be a lot going on and a lot of different phases going on in parallel, and there's going to be everyone in the city that is going to be impacted. And so really ensuring that you have clear communication and managing of the people on the project is crucial to stay on schedule and budget. And I've already talked about change management. That should be a priority throughout. That's all we got. Thank you.
Tim, would you go ahead and cover kind of the agenda items related to this?
So the agenda items,
Yeah,
there are
just give an overview of what they're going to be asked to vote on.
essentially, there are 3 documents that, maybe 4, that we've attached to the agenda item. The first of which would be the pricing sheet, essentially, that Tyler has provided for the city to kind of give the numbers. The second is the statement of work, which is a pretty good explanation of how things are going to go. And then there's a third document. Help me out, Gary. What was that third document besides the statement of work and is it the implementation? What was that third one?
Oh, yeah, the investment summary, the contract, and the statement of work.
Ah, yes, the contract, of course. That's where the real meat of it is. And the contract is basically the framework for the other 2 pieces as well. Included with the recommendation as well was some charts basically outlining all of the expected costs throughout the project. One of the costs that the city will be faced with, obviously, is we're not going to make this switch overnight. And so for a time, we'll be running 2 systems. And when you're running 2 systems, there will be 2 costs. And so that's why you see some of the numbers being different when you look at those and scratch your head going, why? But that's essentially what you'll be asked to vote on is we'd like to start working with Tyler Technologies and move forward with the ERP system.
We had originally budgeted about two and a quarter million for this project, and we're asking the council to approve 1.75 million tonight. The 5-year agreement with Tyler, as Tim noted, at some point the general fund will take over the charges related to that, but the initial implementation costs about 800,000, and then 219,000 per year for ongoing expenses, which the general fund will initially take over. As Tim noted, there'll be other expenses not related to this contract involved in the implementation. And then maybe just touch on the Plant Moran item that's on the agenda as well.
So as was pointed out, those first few steps are very important. And one of the things that we've had assistance from Plant Moran throughout the selection process. And I'd really think it would be helpful for the city to have some outside influence in taking those first few steps. Now, do I expect necessarily that we need in-depth project management throughout the entire process? Maybe not. But I do feel like these first few steps, especially with regards to the financial pieces, we really could use a little bit of outside assistance to kind of make sure we get off on the right foot. And they're able to bring in subject matter experts and sort of complement what the city's doing versus how Tyler does things and help us come to something in the middle, so to speak.
And then finally, maybe just talk a little bit about the schedule.
So the schedule is it's tight, right? It's ultimately we're trying to get it all put in over the course of the next 2 years. The first piece of it would be the financial components, slated to start as early as next month. And so we'll start work on the financial pieces in April, and they are expected to function through probably next March. But once we are 3 or 4 months into the financial piece, there's an interest in bringing up the utility billing component, which specifically is intended for revenue management. And so that'll start shortly after, things like cashiering and so forth. So that'll be kind of going on at the same time. Then when we get to the first of the year, we're probably going to try to get started with both community and economic development, which they refer to as civic serve, as well as HR. And so we'll be talking about changes in payroll. We'll be talking about time tracking changes that'll be different. But at the same time, we'll be talking about modifications to how permits are being done, business licenses, all of that sort of stuff will begin to be implemented once we get into the first of the year. And so it is a multi-year project. We're hoping that we can get it all done, quite honestly, in 2 years. It's a heavy lift.
Questions from the council, or? I have one, and I don't know if it was touched on or not. Are there, I'll say, software platforms that we have, Public Works or whatever, that affect this, don't affect that? Are they compatible?
Yes and no. So one of the most recent systems that we put in place was the C-Click Fix. There is a possibility that we may revisit that in time, just because there are some overlap between what C-Click Fix and what Tyler has to offer. And so we may try to find a way to bring those two worlds together. Public Works uses GIS extensively, and one of the things that we really need to do is kind of bolster our GIS system. So we've been working with another vendor to try and get our GIS environment stabilized. It isn't just Public Works, it's community and economic development and city as a whole that utilizes it. And so that needs to be ironed out. And one of the things that Public Works does rely on, of course, is time tracking, payroll, like we all do. And so that's going to affect them too in the long term.
So, I just imagine it would. So do we know where we have to customize compatibility so information can be transferred from one to the other? Or is it something we may have to just run separately and manually put together, or abandon one, abandon the other and go into it? Or
well, initially what we're planning on is converting some data from the existing system, certainly with financial data and hopefully from permits and business licenses as well.
Yeah.
And so there is a phase that we'll go through to try and pick up as much of that history, up to 5 years worth of history, and move it into the new system. So that'll be going on as well.
Yeah, but I guess I was going back to and using Public Works only as the example there, whether there's other areas that I'm just not familiar with, that those software platforms will then eventually be phased out and find one that's compatible with Taylor, or that the information can go from one to the other smoothly.
Well, they've got a long list of partners. I know that. Gary could probably elaborate better than I could. I know in particular, we looked at the training pieces that Tyler had to offer. And so the city was already using something called Biz Library, and I think we're going to continue with that. It's also true that we already use a recruiting module from a company called NeoGov. And NeoGov is probably going to have to be integrated into the Tyler platform moving ahead, not necessarily replaced. And so, but at the same time, we're probably talking about eliminating Govern, which is what we use now for business licenses, permits, that kind of stuff. Inspections uses it for code enforcement. So that's going out. The cashiering, which is Inova, that's another piece that'll go out. Obviously, GEMS, which is our HR payroll system right now, and the time tracking system from Attendance Enterprise will more than likely be replaced. The only other, what else am I missing?
North Star.
North Star.
Get rid-
That's the
no, get
utility
rid of it.
billing piece. So yes, North Star will be phased out as well, which is another important component for utility billing. What else did I forget?
That's fine. That's close enough. I was just curious because sometimes it's like a year and a half from now, it's kind of like, oh, by the way, we got to get rid of this software platform because it's not compatible with Taylor. We can't get information over to it, or we're manually doing stuff. And so that's how I just didn't know if we could avoid some of that or not. Or
Well, I think we've tried as best we know how at this point, right? You can't know everything. This is kind of a thing I've come to realize over the years. But you try to plan for as much as you can. And it's going to be an interesting couple of years. The objective was to make sure that we are settled on this platform for a good 5 years. And after that, we might talk about something different again. I don't know. But let's hope not, because changing our financial software is
no, I agree.
It's not a thing we want to take lightly.
Yeah.
But realistically, there's always going to be changes. Natalie alluded to that too. There's going to be little bumps in the road that we stumble onto and oh, we didn't know that.
Sure.
And so there is a little contingency built in to the project overall, but not a tremendous amount. Okay. So we have just a little bit of wiggle room in there in case we stumble onto something like that.
Mr. Robinson, you want to say something?
What is the percentage of this is going to be a lift and shift versus custom code with a lot of the old software and stuff that we currently have within our operation? It's all going. So it's all going to be new code. Yeah. Wow. So you mentioned, or I think Natalie mentioned about staff. Do we have the staff on hand to handle that, or would that be shifted over to Tyler as far as staffing component?
We're going to have to come up with some sort of balancing act. I think the answer is no. We don't have anybody trained in Tyler today. As we move forward, the hope is that we'll get trained in Tyler. But the reality is that, without crying in my soup, there used to be 8 of us in IT, and now there's only 5 of us. And so we've made some changes over the last 5, 6, 7 years that we just don't have extra brains anymore. And so there might need to be a little shoring up of staff as we move ahead.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about training. How is training? Has that been factored into all of this?
It has. We talked about that in relatively good detail. There is a desire, I think, from Tyler's point of view, to do a train the trainer type of approach.
Right.
And that will probably be the predominant approach. But at the same time, there are some things that may not work out well for. When there's only one person that uses this piece or 2 people that uses this component. So we'll see how that goes.
I know that approach. My job tries the same thing, and it is a train wreck, unfortunately. I'm just being honest. Again, we're right in the middle of the same type of process where I just was sharing with Tim about one of the things we were doing last week at my job. So we're in the same process of doing the same type of thing. And my last question then is software. I mean, are we? I see software as a service is the platform we're going with. So I'm assuming that all of our data is going to be stored in a cloud base versus on site. So we're getting rid of all of our servers then.
We will phase them out over time. That's true.
Okay.
And one of the things that we sort of had anticipated if we stayed status quo was we were going to have to replace some of the servers we were on anyway.
Right.
Especially things like Microsoft Server, SQL, all of that stuff sort of underneath. as well as the Unisys stuff that kind of was in the middle for a while. And then you had gyms on top of it. So it is possible that we are going to phase out a lot of servers over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. We won't have near what we've used to have, at least what we have now, which is probably around 50 or 60 boxes. So not all for that same thing, but in time we are going to.
So for like our police footage and everything, that's all cloud-based now, right now anyway.
Some of it is and some of it isn't. So all of the body cameras, vehicle cameras, those all go up to the cloud. But we still have the fixed cameras, I call it, ones that are installed in buildings, intersections, that kind of stuff. Those are all coming to the station and being recorded there.
Okay. Well, I will get down in the weeds, so I'll email you.
That's fine.
I don't want to bore everyone with the technical things.
Alderman Robertson, I wanted to make sure I understood your first question. Did you ask if a lot of custom coding was going to need to be done?
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
no, that's not the case with this project at all. Yeah.
Well,
We're not going to be doing any coding.
no,
that's all
not you,
Tyler.
but Tyler will be doing coding.
Yeah.
So what I mean by custom code is that so a lift and shift is you take the software that we currently have and you just plug it into what Tyler has versus Tyler building something to accommodate that. Either they're building it from scratch, which we consider that as custom code, because it's going to be kind of formatted to fit our environment or our needs. So we consider that custom code. Well, in our environment, we consider that custom code. With that, that's what I mean by the training, because eventually we either are going to be relying on Tyler to troubleshoot our issues, or we're going to have staff on hand to troubleshoot those issues. I know a lot of IT shops are going low code, no code, which they're doing a lot of, you know the term.
For us, it's going to be low code, no code.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the
That's how it's
software
gonna
world.
be.
This is very much an off-the-shelf product. This
Yeah,
is,
that's right.
Yeah.
And so everyone says they will give you a package, and I'm not saying anything negative about Tyler, but they're going to give you a package. But what you will find out is sometimes what they present in that package is not going to be useful for you, and you're going to need something custom. So this ensure that we have that in the back of our heads. Everything off the shelf, we want to keep it as simple as possible, yes, but sometimes there's going to be some things that are going to have to be custom. If it's a table, if it's a couple of tables that have to talk to one another a certain way, you're not going to find that out of the box. And that was one of the issues we found out. We were presented an out of the box option, which should be able to do everything that we needed to do. Once we dove in and actually got them on site and they started digging through our code and our data, we had to customize a lot of stuff. So we had to backtrack. So that was kind of like my issues in the beginning, to ensure that we have an exit strategy. Because what we found out is once you get your code into these systems, it's hard to get it out. It's easy to go in with no code, low code. You're doing a totally different, you're not doing C# anymore. You're doing JavaScript. And so it's totally different languages. And it's a learning curve sometimes.
Yeah, I think that the team specifically, I sort of went through the names of the team very, very first. We have met for months, basically. And one of the objectives that I kind of tried to get across was we're either going to have to adapt the software to us or we are going to have to change to the software. And predominantly the group is like, I think we're ready to change to meet what this software has to offer. And so we did have that discussion. And we're not going in with complete blinders on. They're aware of the fact that some changes on the horizon, but you're right. There's always a possibility that there will be some little thing off to the side, and that's always a risk.
Right.
This little bitty thing in the corner, oops, we didn't take into consideration. That's going to have to be dealt with.
Right. Well, I mean, wonderful presentation. Again, just like I said before, full trust and faith in what you guys are doing. I definitely don't want to step on any toes. So nice job.
Thank you.
Any other questions by anybody? Not hearing any. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody on the other end.
You bet. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right.
Thank you to the city. Thank you, Nina and Natalie.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you. Take care.
Too. Meister Bartels, you up first or next? Okay.
All right, well, good evening, City Council. Thank you for allowing us again to present to the City Council tonight to discuss the downtown project. Um, As you all know, this is an update tonight to give you an update on the bids that we received and the revisions or the recommendations that we're proposing to the council for the project moving forward. Um, We received 3 bids for this project on February 15th, and we opened bids on February 15th, and we received 3 bids, and those were Valley Construction, Langman Construction, and McCarthy Construction. So between the bid opening on February 15th and now, the project team sitting next to me here have been very busy working, going through this entire project. We had obviously a lot of bids. We've had a lot of alternates included in this project. So there's a lot of information to dissect and bring the best recommendations forward to the council that we feel will be the best investment for the city and in the downtown. I mentioned the project team. So we have myself, we have Mike Kane, the city engineer, Jason McKenzie from BNK, the project manager. We have Jack Collin, the director from the Downtown Alliance. We have Andrew Dasso, the president of Streamline. And then we have Manzi, Sangvi? Yes. Yes? Sounds close enough, right? With Streamline as well. So this is our project team. So the base bid, we've had 3 project goals from the beginning on this project, and that was to enhance public spaces, encourage private investment, and improve the overall quality of life for downtown workers, business owners, and residents and visitors. So this is the project scope that we had. I know some of these slides you've seen before. We've modified these with the information that we're presenting tonight. Can you all see what's in front of me on your computers? Okay. It's a little different, so I'm sorry, I'm getting used to this here. So First Avenue, as we mentioned, will be starting construction in 2025. That's a IDOT project on being let this fall, and it's through Surface Transportation Block Grants. So that project is separate from this. The area in yellow and orange is what we call the base bid. That was originally the scope of the project to begin with, and was really the focus of the project going along. We had several public comment or several public meetings and meetings with the council getting up to this point to where we went out for bids to have elements that the project would like to see and the residents would like to see in the project. And so we've incorporated some of those projects. These have come from downtown revitalization plans and other plans from the past here. So the alternates that I'm referring to are Arts Alley. Let's see here. Gee whiz. Sorry. Trying to. It's a little delayed too. So Arts Alley is an alternate. We had the outdoor lawn area, play area, in the green area there. That was a element that was added after we had our initial discussion as a result of public comment. And then the areas in gray were also alternates, which was 3rd Avenue reconstruction from 17th to 18th Street, the dog park, and then the alley here next to the dog park. So the objectives again with this project are a complete reconstruction of the streets and sidewalks from building face to building face. We're replacing all the utilities, water main, storm, and sanitary sewers. We're making streetscape improvements, including the street lights, trees, benches, and trash receptacles. We're also looking at placemaking to include public art, lighting, gateway signage, and outdoor patios. So what is being recommended with this project? So we're recommending the base bid be awarded, which is the reconstruction of 2nd Avenue Plaza to a Festival Street, 18th Street reconstruction from 1st to 3rd Avenue, and 3rd Avenue reconstruction from 18th to 19th Street. This will include, as I mentioned before, streetscaping, including trees, lighting, downtown gateway at 1st Avenue, gateway columns, water, sewer, and storm sewer. We're also recommending the Arts Alley revitalization. So that will include lighting, pavement, murals, a vendor stall, new signage, and an outdoor art gallery. Again, we're also recommending the 18th Street green space area, which is converting the existing parking lot to green space, new lighting. We'll have the Rock Island placemaking signage that we have shown in previous presentations, and we'll also show here in later slides. What is not being recommended is the reconstruction of 3rd Avenue from 17th to 18th Street, which is known as alternate 2, the dog park, which is alternate 3, alley reconstruction near the dog park, which is alternate 4, and the WHBF tower lighting. So these next several slides that I'm showing you are elements that are being included in the base bid and alternates. One of the most exciting features that I think are included in this project is the gateway structure here at 18th Street and 1st Avenue. So as you can tell, we spoke about this before, but this includes the traffic signal being installed or included in this structure. It'll have a stone veneer. It'll be lighted on the columns. And again, the downtown Rock Island welcome to with the established 1841 will all be illuminated as well. It's a two-sided structure, so when you exit the downtown, you'll see the same thing on the other side. And we're tying in 1st Avenue with elements of this project as well, of this structure. As I mentioned, this is the other side of the gateway structure looking towards Schriever Park. And again, it's a very beautiful structure, welcoming residents into the downtown and business. So this is part of the base bid here. Again, just a big aerial view. What I don't want to give people false hope. So the project is really actually ending right here. This is also all existing and will remain this way. So our western limit of 2nd Avenue is stopping here. But again, it's including the roundabout. You see the outdoor lawn structure there, the new festival plaza, all new pavement, new lighting. Really, really big improvement to this area in the downtown. Just a closer look at 2nd Avenue intersection at 18th Street. So we have the roundabout. We'll talk about some of the items that were removed a little bit further down in the presentation for cost savings. One of those areas that I'll go ahead and mention was we included roundabout lights here in this area. We eliminated those for project savings. There was several elements in this project to get the project within the funding limits that we eliminated, and we'll go into those further in the presentation. So this is one of the alternates that we're recommending acceptance on, which is the outdoor lawn at 2nd Avenue and 18th Street. This is near the DAC-FAC parking lot currently. You see the food trucks along 18th Street there. We're providing electrical outlets for connections for those food trucks if needed or wanted. We also have the outdoor lawn area, new lighting up above. We feel like this is an outdoor area for people to come in and sit, as shown, for young kids to run around and play. That's not a paved surface. They can fall down and skin their knees if needed. But again, this is one of the alternates that was wanted by the residents, and we felt it very important to include it in the project. This is the Rock Island logo placemaking sign that we feel will be a great element for this area. Pictures can be taken behind the sign. Again, it's just that placemaking element that we wanted to make sure that was included in this project. So this is the project looking at the eastern limit on 3rd Avenue and 19th Street. You can see Pancake House there. So we're just showing again what the project will look like. Again, new lighting, new reconstruction of the streets. You've seen these images before. Elements of the design elements of the project. So we looked at lighting space 50 feet apart on alternating sides. It's currently now at 60 feet. Tree and in-ground planters spaced 50 feet apart on alternating sides. And then we had the picture frame concrete for the sidewalks shown in the lower right corner there. And as the new parking ramp, we utilized that for the new parking lot area. So if you wanted to see what that looks like, the new parking lot area, the exterior sidewalk has that picture frame sidewalk currently. So I'm going to turn it over to Jack Golan now for the Arts Alley and the patio discussions.
Mike. Fantastic. Good evening, Council. Thanks for the opportunity. Again, know most of you, but for those tuning in, my name is Jack Cullen, Executive Director of the Rock Island Downtown Alliance. And I'm really excited to present on behalf of the Downtown Alliance tonight. Prior to the establishment of the Downtown Alliance, we had the Downtown Rock Island Steering Committee dating back to April 2021 that has provided input on these improvements since that time, taking input from the 2015 Downtown Plan, input from the Downtown Steering Committee to where we are at now with the Rebuild Downtown Committee of the Downtown Alliance, as well as our full board of directors. And so over the past month, since the bids were returned, we've worked with the committee and the board to come up with these proposals as well. And Mike touched on this, but I want to go back just real brief on this overview. We initially didn't include the green lawn into the proposed, as part of the proposed recommendations. And it was our Rebuild Downtown Committee of the Downtown Alliance that came back at us and said, well, which is very smart and good comment. If we're improving everything around that space and we'll just maintain that older parking lot there, it will feel unfinished. And so that was indirect response to input from that committee. Again, just as an example to show how we've worked with that committee of the board to get to this point now. It also aligns with feedback that we got from the community at one of our larger public input meetings during this process.
Jack, sorry to interrupt. Can you share who serves on that committee for my colleagues?
Yes, it's a 5-person committee of the downtown board. Amanda Wood of Russell Construction, who is representing the federal building. She also sits on our board. Erica Williams, who is a property owner and resident at Dumarche Condos. Greg Stecker, owner of Stecker Graphics, property owner downtown. Pat Stolley, who is a registered contractor with the city of Rock Island. He's a building owner downtown. And Laura Mon, who is the executive director of Nest Cafe. So a variety of perspectives, both from folks who have been involved in downtown for a long time or whose families have been involved downtown for a long time, as well as those who are, newer, if you will, whether they run an organization or own a business or some sort of an operation downtown. So thank you for that. Laura and Pat are not on the board. They're downtown stakeholders. The other 3 are on our full board of directors. So moving on to Arts Alley, as you recall, and we'll get into the different funding sources of the project in a little bit. But this is a direct result of a State of Illinois Tourism Attraction and Festivals grant that we helped secure in partnership with the city. One of the most exciting pieces about this project are the large-scale murals. The goal for these murals, and they are gigantic. I mean, combined, we have over 4,000 square feet of wall space. And one of the goals with the murals specifically, is to come up with something stylistically that doesn't exist anywhere else in the Quad Cities, really helping to create that tourism attraction, people coming here to look at those large scale murals done in Arts Alley. And I guess one rewind as a reminder to folks who may be forgetting, but there used to be a building in this space, and in the early 90s, it was demolished, and as a form of infill development, Arts Alley was created. We believe this project is really taking it to that next step, to its fullest potential as an outdoor art gallery, social gathering place, special event, shared space in the downtown. We are working with Quad City Arts on the request for qualifications and getting to the point where we're actually selecting muralists. We had over 400 submissions from artists around the world for this, and so that's extremely exciting. We've narrowed down that list to just over 130 artists, and that is strictly based on qualifications and quality from our based on the views from our partners at Quad City Arts. And so we'll be actively working with downtown stakeholders, with the building owners on both sides of Arts Alley, the Public Arts and Beautification Commission, as well as seeking opportunities for other ways to garner public input on finalizing the designs, what the actual murals will become in that space. So more to come there. Decorative string lighting throughout the alley, opportunity for other smaller artworks in the frames along more kind of the street level part of the alleyway, new signage marking that this is Arts Alley, decorative concrete throughout the space, a vendor stall that can be used. Initially, we had the idea of using it as part of a holiday shop up or pop-up shop program where entrepreneurs, artists, businesses could come in and test the market as kind of part of a holiday program in Arts Alley and downtown Rock Island. We initially had two in this part of the project, but as a cost-saving piece, we cut it down to one. One of the exciting pieces about this structure is that it's a modular unit. And so it actually can be repurposed into, say, a pop-up stage that can be used in a different part of the downtown. It's a temporary structure in Arts Alley. So again, modular, designed as temporary, pop it up for a specific time of year when it's being programmed and it's actively being used. Say it's November, December during the holiday season. Summer concert series on the new festival street. We could use that on the green lawn as a pop-up stage, as an example, that it can serve many different uses. Something that is exciting to me, you can't see it in this rendering, but part of the proposed scope of the Arts Alley project is to have a dumpster enclosure created on the north end of the alleyway, actually using some of Modern Women of America's property that they're willing to work with us on having a dumpster enclosure to remove the dumpsters from Arts Alley and hopefully some of those that are adjacent to Arts Alley as well, to clean up the space if we're trying to make it a tourist attraction, not wanting to have the dumpsters in that space. This is an aerial. We have a holiday or Christmas tree at the south end of Arts Alley, again, as another example of a way it could be programmed. Perhaps we do an annual Christmas tree lighting where the mayor fires up the Christmas tree, and it's right there on the south end of Arts Alley. Again, an example, the tree itself isn't as part of the proposed scope of work, but something that we could explore in the future. Outdoor patios. This has been, the project is called the Rebuild Downtown, and the name of this grant we're getting from the state of Illinois is the Rebuild Downtowns and Main Streets grant program. Part of this is about, continuing to recover from the pandemic and supporting businesses that were established prior to the pandemic, survived the economic hardships of that time, and are still thriving. And one of the very tangible ways that we'd like to do that is through the addition of an outdoor patio district to not only enhance the streetscape, but really provide a way for businesses to expand their footprint out into the public realm. In addition, as another way to help market, promote their business at the street level. So we've seen a lot of successful programs across the country during the pandemic up until now, and many are still being created, just as we're proposing. This overview gives you an aerial map of where we would like to see the outdoor patio structures go. And so there are 10 establishments that are on this map. And the reason we have 10 there as well, a number of businesses that offer dining throughout the downtown, but also have the infrastructure or the sidewalk that would allow these structures. And so based off council input following one of our last discussions, all of the patio structures are proposed for on the sidewalk. Nothing that is taking up parking spaces and carrying out or spilling out into the street. And so that was one of our priorities as we explored with the different vendors we were looking at, is to put these on the sidewalks in front of businesses, but as a way to help them expand their footprint. This is a bit smaller. You may see better images on your screen, but these are the specific specs that we put out in this bid package for the outdoor patio structures for the different restaurants. Based on what their store frontage is, we came up with different or custom designs in terms of the patio fencing for each of these establishments. So the idea with this is that Again, this is also a modular unit, modular fencing that we would be receiving assistance with to install for the first time. But moving forward, it would be a collaboration between the Downtown Alliance and Rock Island Public Works to put these up. It's really a 6-month seasonal structure. We wouldn't want these to be out in the wintertime, unless, of course, a business wants to make further investments into their structure. There's actually modular pieces that you can cover these to make it more of an indoor, more of an indoor structure during the winter months. But these would be, to make clear, bolted into the ground during the summer season or outdoor dining season, and then could be removed during the winter months. Businesses would be responsible for providing their own tables and chairs, and can keep them out overnight through a simple lock cable. If there were concerns about people running through or running away with a chair or a table, there are ways to prevent that from happening. But yes, we would be purchasing them, providing them for the restaurants. Restaurants would have an opportunity to further customize as well. In lieu of one of those wooden panels, a restaurant could purchase a custom-made sign to fit into one of those panels, for their business to again enhance that marketing aspect. Planters and other decorative features can be added on as well. But we wanted to invest in the base infrastructure for this patio fencing to provide for the businesses. This is an example of it out on the street. The vision I like to give is, it's a Saturday morning, 10 a.m. You're wanting to go to the Pancake House for brunch with your family. Guaranteed at least a 45-minute wait at that time of day on a Saturday. And so we envision folks taking a walk through the adjacent alleyway onto the festival street. There's outdoor dining structures. Perhaps there's a farmer's market. You can get a little bite to eat, coffee or a drink, enjoy one of these outdoor structures, the adjacent green lawn, places for your children to play. And then you head back to brunch after that short stint and hit a couple of shops after that. But that's, again, kind of the vision that goes along with these improvements that we're putting in front of you tonight. And with that, I will hand it back to Mike Bartels. Correct? Or excuse me, Jason McKenzie from Beedster and Kim.
Thank you, Council. Yeah, Jason McKenzie with Beedster and Kim. I'm just going to run through the numbers and talk through some of the items being moved to future phases and a cost breakdown, and then just kind of summarize where we are in the schedule. So as they alluded to, there's the $3 million basically Illinois Rebuild Downtown Grant. There'll be $3.9 million of ARPA funds in this project, 1.5 of the downtown TIF funds, and then basically there's a grant for $267,000 for the Illinois Tourism Attraction Grant for a total of $8.7 million. So this spreadsheet right here kind of goes through. We worked with Downtown Alliance Committee, Downtown Alliance Board, Rock Island staff, and the project team to kind of go through these items being moved to future items. 2 gateway columns, basically kind of one in front of Circa and the one in QC Pancake House will be moved out of the project for $36,000. Some planters for $11,000. The pop-up stage for $25,000. The dumpster enclosure, basically, we'll be having the one dumpster enclosure adjacent to Arts Alley, but we'll be eliminating the one that's basically between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, and then 19th and 18th Street in that alley right there. And then as Mike Bartels talked about, the roundabout lights will be eliminated out of there. That's not a safety issue. It was just kind of aesthetics. some aggregate base. We're just changed it to a different spec. Got a little bit of savings there. And then also down the list there, the parklets, we basically took those out of the base bid for 192,000 and then just directly contracted with the vendor for 124. And then there over in Arts Alley, we eliminated one vendor stall for 103,000, and then the postcard wall, 85,000, and then the green screen 75,000. One thing to add is the murals cost that Jack was talking about is 102,000, so that'll be added into this contract. So this is all added in. The 18th Street lawn, we took away the play structures for 22,000. So we were able to cut out about 700,000 out of the base bid, Alt 1 and Alt 5 out of there, working with everybody and also working with Valley Construction. We went and talked with them, and these are the numbers that they confirmed for the cuts. And then so for a revised bid of the base bid, Arts Alley, and then Alt 5, which is the 18th Street lawn, there'd be about 7,757,652,000. And then as far as engineering, 500,000. Then also we thought it was crucial to have a contingency in here because we'll be working in an older downtown area, and there'll be some unforeseen things that come up. So we included a 5% contingency in there for any unforeseen items. So for a total of price of 8.7 million, and then as we just talked about the last slide, the secure funds are 8.7. This is kind of a cost breakdown, just to kind of show you what's going to be included in the project. There'll be 5 blocks of pavement, and then there'll be 5 blocks of sidewalk being all reconstructed, 4 blocks of water being reconstructed, brand new. Same with sanitary, and then storm, and then 5 blocks of new electrical with lighting, and then 4 blocks of landscaping and the green lawn there, and then 5 blocks of furnishings, and then some miscellaneous items there. So as we're here today at the council asking for approval, and then if we get approval, we'll move forward with a pre-construction meeting with the contractor this week, and then we'll also then have a downtown stakeholder meeting the following week to go over phasing and schedule, and then talking with Valley Construction, they want to get started right away, so it sounds like they'll probably get started the following Monday on the 8th of April. And so construction will start about, the 8th of April. At this time, I just want to thank you for your time and open it up to any questions anyone might have.
I have one. So just as I'm looking at the plaza area, the street there, I don't notice any lane markings down the center line markings. Are we not having any?
I guess at first these are just conceptual. So
Great. I'm just checking because every time it keeps popping up, I don't see them. I'm just making sure we're looking at, that's something we're doing, correct?
Down the plaza.
Yeah.
It's the city's choice. We could put them or we don't have to put them. Just do this as a residential street, but we can put the.
Mike, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, we have it.
we probably should include them. Yes.
Okay. Is that okay? One more question real quick. Now, I know we've had a lot of things take place here, but so are we using those? So say we have an event going on. Are we still going to be using some kind of a gate there at the entrance
there'll be removable bollards basically on both sides of the plaza,
Okay.
and they'll basically they'll be in there during the event, and they'll be able to take them out, and they'll be flush during any other time.
Okay, that's all.
Anyone else have a question?
I do have
Yes.
one. So where the park is going, the Green Lawn and Second and 18th, does the city own that?
Yes.
We do. Okay.
Yes, we do own the lot.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
I have a question for Miles, even though he's not over there. He's over here. Miles, I had a constituent raise some concerns about our newly minted designation of our downtown on the National Register for Historic Places. There's going to be a bunch of new flashy lights, et cetera, with this project. Is there any concern from your perspective that this will negatively impact our designation on the National Register for Historic Places?
See, the great thing about being in this room is that I don't have to be up here. I can stay right here and talk to you. So those concerns have been raised before. And obviously, when you look at these renderings, you'll see a couple of things. One, the lights that we have been using, which have a more kind of historically sensitive design, those are being continued throughout to try to be mindful of that. There are more modern looks that we could have gone for. This is probably something in the middle when you look at it holistically. As for the kind of long-term health of the historic district, really that's focused on the buildings themselves, not so much the streetscapes around them. So I wouldn't say there's any concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, would you go ahead and talk about the agenda items related to this and kind of how the numbers are in that approval item?
All right, it's froze.
Well, there you go.
Okay, great. Are you referring to more of the ARPA discussion? The ARPA
Yeah, but
issue?
then also the nature of the approval item and what we're asking them to do related to letting us continue to value engineer it. And the numbers are a little bit different.
Sure. So we originally had $2.5 million of ARPA funds budgeted for this project. As mentioned, we've included $1.4 million of ARPA funds that were originally allocated for the Mill Street Digester project. That project currently has expanded in scope. It's beyond what the 1.4 million would cover significantly, and so we're looking at other funding options for that project. So it would not meet the timeline that is required by ARPA for construction. So the project came in over budget for water and sewer to begin with. So we've reallocated those funds for water and sewer, and then some other qualifying ARPA expenses as well. So that's where you see that increase. Again, we've included the contingency for the project at 5%, which is about $466,000 for the project. That's one of the other changes that wasn't originally planned for. And then we still have engineering and contract expenses for once the construction begins. We'll have a full-time construction inspector on the project, inspecting the work that takes place, doing material testing, and we'll have construction layout as well. So that is some ongoing expenses that will still need to be paid for. So if there's any questions, the memo goes into it in pretty good depth. One thing to point out with the alternates, we included these alternates because of either public comment from our public meetings of wanting to see these items in it, or from Jack's meetings with the Downtown Alliance and work groups. Just because they're not being included at this point in time doesn't mean that they want to be included in future phases. The nice thing about them being alternates, we have a exact price, at least at this point in time, of what the costs will be. We can plan for those moving forward. We can look at different funding sources for those, whether it be grants or CDS spending, those type of options. And the work has already been designed, engineered, and ready to go out for bids. So we could take these plans for these alternates, and if the council wanted to allocate additional funding for these projects, say next year or even this year, we could put out the project within a week or 2 weeks time frame, change some dates on the current plans and put them out for bids. So that work has already been designed and ready to go, which is nice. It's unfortunate that we can't move forward with all these elements, but again, it's not, we don't want to make sure, we want to make sure that the council's aware and everybody in the city that these projects can happen in the future should funding become available.
I have a question. Why was the decision made to do 3rd Avenue instead of just doing all of 2nd Avenue?
So that was one of the items that I wanted to see included in the project. We have businesses along that area. It ties in the new parking lot that we just constructed and would tie in the rest of our construction. So it's kind of working our way into that, all the new improvements that we're talking about tonight. Again, we hope that we would receive the project funding to be able to do that alternate, but we just came in over budget.
Okay. My concern is just exactly what you said, but I take the opposite approach, that we have businesses currently there, so why not take an area that does not have businesses? I mean, there's way more open spaces on 2nd Avenue than on 3rd Avenue. So that was just my concern.
Yeah, and that's and Jack can kind of allude to that too, but we have not necessarily about the business point that you're pointing out, but wherever we go in the downtown, we're always going to have someone upset with where we're doing the work and where we're not. You know, we touch back to the 2nd Avenue and the roundabout area as being the focal point of the downtown, expanding from there. These are future improvements that, again, like if we have funding to do that street, that would be one of the areas that I would recommend moving forward with right away. But it just, we don't have the funding.
One other piece to note, and Mike Kane is our historian on this, but
Are you saying he's old?
And that's out of full respect. But the 1700 block of 2nd Avenue and the 1600 block of 2nd Avenue were redone more recently, I believe. Yep, but why not? Why not doing all of 2nd? So I think that was also part of, the reasoning going in behind that too, is that it's newer infrastructure on those 2 adjacent blocks. They already have like the pedestrian scale street lighting as an example, but hopefully this serves as a great framework for going block by block in the future. Now that we have these design guidelines, we know the type of sidewalk panels that we want, the types of street lighting, the diversity in tree species, things of that nature. Hopefully it sets us up for success for going block by block in the coming years as funding allows.
I just got a quick question about the lighting on the lawn. I understand we're going into costs a little bit, so I don't know what the cost is for the rope lights on the green lawn. Have we thought about doing this like a pole since that whole area has kind of changed? We took the playground equipment out. We kind of took the stage out. I don't know what kind of programming we're looking out there. I know Jack said something about we could do a pop-up stage or something like that, but have we thought about changing the design of those lights just so it's not just like we threw rope lights all over the downtown area?
We haven't thought about changing the way the lighting is laid out currently as shown. We have pricing to make those modifications ahead of time should the council want to make those changes. I believe it's just a linear foot for the string lighting, so we know exactly what the cost is per foot. And then each light pole or light pole, we have each price for those as well. So if we wanted to remove the string lighting, add in some vertical pole lighting, we could do that and give you those costs.
Gotcha.
We would just need to know that obviously here in the next month or two.
Right. Jack, real quick, for Arts Alley, are we uplighting the murals? I think in the presentation it looked like we had some uplighting on that, but I don't know if that's in this.
We don't have a component for uplighting in this proposed scope. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do we? No, we do not. This is though something that we've had preliminary conversations about with the building owners, not specifically around uplighting these murals, but uplighting those buildings in general. I know
Right.
one of the property owners has brought it up as something that they would potentially be interested in. So not in the proposed scope, but perhaps it's something that we could work through as a secondary phase.
I guess I'm just looking at the aesthetics. If it's at night, I think that will just make that area pop.
Yep.
If you have the rope lights, it's almost going to shadow it where you can't see the murals at night, and that will help enhance it a little bit to kind of bring that area into more of a festive vibe or whatever. But you can highlight it some way. Just some thoughts.
No, that's a great input, and I appreciate the comment about the green lawn lighting as well. Not sure if on the market there are opportunities with the string lights to help do any sort of uplighting, but it's something that we can explore. So
You could put them on the roof and get rid of the poles.
Attaching to private property and that sort of thing, but yeah.
I don't know how much pedestrian lighting that would offer
It's a
then. It's pretty
great-
high up.
great input. One of the pieces, and it was brought up by Alderman Parker. One of the concerns I think that was potentially there from the State Historic Preservation Office was around affecting any residents in buildings, and so that is one of the pieces to be sensitive about in terms of uplighting or downlighting from up high. One of these buildings is residents
right.
and windows, and so let's say that's one of the constraints, with the lighting component. The other piece,
They don't show it there, just windows.
yeah, no, that's, I mean,
Windows in this
that was their initial concern. So that's something that we would have to work around.
Any further questions, comments? Appreciate it. Oh, did you have something?
Just excited for it to happen.
There you go. Absolutely. We'll have that opportunity a little later today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and all the hard work everybody's put in. It's not an easy task sometimes to meet everybody's needs. All right. That's all we have on the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Move to second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 6:45 council meeting.